All right, so what I want to do now is I have my HTML here. What I want to actually have some JavaScript written. Okay, so like um, like the CSS, we can write actually JavaScript right inside of here. I could put, I could just do script, and then start writing, document whatever, right? I could start writing scripts right inside of this. It is possible. And sometimes it even makes sense to do that. If you're doing a single page, it might make sense because that way it's not loading multiple pages. Just like with CSS, it's best to put it in the single page if that's all you're using. However, in our case, what I would like to do is actually just make it as an external sheet, just because generally speaking, that is normally the best standard, especially if you have a multi-page site that they're all going to be sourcing the same thing. So for instance, if I had another page, like if this is a part of my website and I have another page that also has a read more, I could have them both linked to that external one instead of having to write it in both of them. So it just makes more sense. So we're going to make an external sheet and then just link it to this. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is up here, just do file, new file, right? And then just save that. We'll just save it right away. So file, save as. And what we're going to do is navigate to wherever your site is, go to the JS folder for JavaScript. And we're just going to call this scripts.js. Okay. Now, unlike the style sheet, where typically your most basic style sheet is always style.css, there is no like typical scripts. So like you might have a whole bunch of different scripts and they all do different things. Like it's specifically for this one, and that name of that one JavaScript is a specific name. I'm just going to do scripts because I feel like that's sort of generic, but it could be any number of things. All right. So now it's set up for the JavaScript. What I want to do though is let me pull this up a little bit. What I want to do is actually go ahead and just write a piece of JavaScript. It's not going to do what we're looking for our thing to do yet. Like I'm not going to actually make the read more work. I just want to make sure that this is connected. Okay, so we're going to write a little piece of JavaScript, and this is what we're going to write. Document.write. And then what we want it to write is we're going to say the Java, you can write whatever you want, script is working. Okay, so whenever I'm doing code, I like to try and write something that will let me know that it's working before I try to do anything fancy. Just to let me know that the link's working, that the JavaScript is indeed functioning, that everything's kind of hunky-dory before I try to do anything that's a little bit above. This way I'll know if it's working. So what we did here is that JavaScript uses the document object model. So document is how we interact with the general HTML. So if I do document, that means this document. And then .write is a built-in method of that object. Basically, it's a function that already exists. I don't have to make this. It exists by default. And that function, what it lets you do is that when you do .write, because it's inside of that, it's dot notation, what that will do is it will actually, it will then, I send it this argument here, and then that argument will be written. And it's going to write as plain text. You'll notice that this isn't wrapped inside of a P element or an H element or anything like that. So it's going to just be like default, like if I just wrote text onto your HTML document. Okay. Now, if we save this and if we test it, you're going to see nothing. And the reason why you see nothing is because, I don't know if I refresh it, but the reason why you see nothing is because we didn't actually link it, right? I wrote this, there's a script here, but it's not attached to this in any way. So we need to actually link this to the website. So to our actual index. Now, normally when we've been doing our CSS, right, we link it at the very top. And you can actually link scripts up at the top, but generally speaking, it's actually best standard to actually link at the very bottom. And the reason for that is that this, in this case, it's not going to matter that much because the JavaScript's not selecting any HTML element, right? Because it's just writing something. It's not grabbing anything specifically from here. But if I wanted to change like these things here, they must exist before the script writes it, right? So if I put the script up here, the script runs where it is placed. So if I put the script up here, what will happen is the document would read, it would run the script, this doesn't exist yet because it's down here. So it's actually usually best to put it at the bottom of your HTML page. That way all of the elements exist before it is run. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and just run script. Script. And then inside of the script, we're just going to put a source. And we're going to source it to, if you remember, it was JS was the folder, / and then it's automatically popping up. The name of it was scripts.js, like that. Now save this. And if we refresh this, Control R, you'll see it says the JavaScript is working. See it right there? But you see it's just plain text. It's not attached to anything. It's actually happening after everything. And that's because, again, where we placed it. If I place that higher up here, it will actually write it. Like if I placed it at the very top here, it would write it right after about cone if I place the script right here, this link to the script. So it runs wherever you place it. So it's generally speaking best to put it at the bottom. All right. Okay, so now we know that the JavaScript's working. That's all great. And we can go on and actually make the things that we need to make.